Welcome home, y'all. All right. So on this MiniPod, I will tell you guys, we were having conversations off camera about engaging you guys. And one of the things that we've been wrestling with is having guests. We hear from you guys and a lot of the people on our team say we wanted to hear you guys in conversation with more guests. Now, the question at issue is, will we have guests? We don't want to be an echo chamber. We should have guests that we disagree with sometimes, opposing points of view. Now, I have an issue with quote unquote platforming, because there could be an issue with the word platforming. I would say I have an issue with platforming Trump people, platforming what I would call nonsense. So if there's somebody out there who is like a Black MAGA person, to me, I hate when people say, oh, I would love to see you debate fill in the blank, any half-witted idiot out there. And I'm offended by it because why would I ever reduce myself to sit across from some of these people who I don't deem an equal to me, and I consider them a disgrace to society, but most definitely to the ancestors. Should we be platforming those kind of people? Should we be in conversation with people, who may feel differently than we do, but also different in a bad way? I love an intellectual exchange of ideas and ideology and disagreement. I don't shy away from that, but I just have an issue with, when Angela first started doing television, which I think is so funny, y'all. Sometimes we'll be out and girls will be like, I grew up watching you.
They definitely
How old are you?
So disrespectful.
How old are you? That you grew up. But I remember when I would see Angela, and they would have Angela on, who is an attorney, former executive director of the caucus, business owner, organizer, sitting across from somebody who ain't nothing but a MAGA idiot. Like, that's it. Mm-hmm. And you're presenting these two voices as though they're on equal footing. And I would be looking at this highly offended.
Mm-hmm. I was offended too.
And Angela was offended too, as she's saying under her breath for some reason, even though she's sitting right next to me.
I'm trying to find this clip.
Angela's looking for a clip.
For this damn clip.
Angela wants us to see this clip, so that's what she's over there doing. But anyway, that is the discussion. That's the discussion that we want to have today. Like, what kind of guests should we be platforming here? Do you guys want to see? I'll tell you, I'm not going to sit across from a Trumper, but do y'all want to see Angela drag a Trumper on this show?
That's not what I want to
see go across? Do y'all want to see her confront these people and question them and, make a fool of them? Because they're not going to be able to be a heavyweight with her. Andrew, what do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you want to have those kind of people on the show? Would you want to interview a person like that?
So no, I mean, the short answer is no. I mean, I don't mind dissent. I don't mind difference of opinion. I don't mind a good, well-informed debate. But just because somebody went viral by their stupidity doesn't mean that we would have a good conversation. And good by way of not agree or disagree with each other, but mostly have it be informed. And I hope you have done some shit.
But what does that mean?
He's saying you have some qualifications.
There's some credentialing.
Yes. You're not just a random. Yeah, I got it.
But I guess,
and if you're random to me, that somewhere what's been happening is relevant. What you've been doing is relevant, and not just trying to be, a bomb thrower or a flamethrower or somebody who's just trying to get attention. Like, nah, time out for that. But if we disagree on something legit, or you have a perspective that I think is curious. Tiffany, I think I was talking to you one day and I was saying, nope, it was you, Angela. I was talking to you about someone in the Trump administration who previously was a Democrat, had previously supported Democrats, lived in California, and made his conversion over to Trump on frankly, monetary policy at the international level. And I was like, man, it's worth hearing this guy and what it is he has to say. And by the end of the conversation, I actually was informed and I could hear him differently because I didn't put him in the category of just being a Trumper. But it took a little bit of convincing for me to be like, okay, that I'll take an hour and listen to what this guy's got to say. But the sensational, I'm good on that.
Can I ask you all, beyond the sensational, let's say there are people who, I actually have two questions, but I'm going to go to this first. There are people like Gavin Newsom right now, right, who is utilizing his platform, is bringing people onto his platform, like Ben Shapiro or Charlie Kirk or Steve Bannon. And it feels like, to me, to be fair, I have not watched this thing, but I have seen clips.
That's all I've seen.
It feels like to me, from the limited experience I've had with the clips, and I hate when people do this, so I am acknowledging that I'm being a hypocrite because I hate when people do it to us, but I'm absolutely doing it. I had no desire to watch this shit. So it looks to me like he's trying to Arnold Schwarzenegger himself for a potential presidential run, to become more neutral, to become more lukewarm, to be in the middle, or kind of even shifting conservative a la Ronald Reagan, a la Arnold Schwarzenegger, so he can be more palatable for a broader electorate. And I feel like it's not authentic, but it's like, I'm going to try to whitewash myself despite my very whiteness to become this instead of politicking with Marshawn Lynch and the other guy. And it feels like a mess. Like, I'm not talking about that. Like, I'm not talking about like, well, now that you said it that way, I kind of could see how I could vote for Trump. Not like that. Like, but it's more like, let me understand your story. Like, how did you get here? You know, what led you down this road? Was there a tipping point for you? Like, we're in a tipping point right now. We're like, I don't think in 2022 we would be talking about trying to get Chuck Schumer out of leadership. You know, as agitating as it might be, as some of us might prefer Cory Booker or Elizabeth Warren, or I don't think that we would necessarily, I'm loud and it's making you echo. I don't know that any of us would have pushed for that, but there's a tipping point where you're just like, I've had enough. Now, my tipping point ain't like, I had enough. MAGA. Like, that's not my tipping point. That's not where I swing, but I understand why there are some people who strategically might think, if I shock the conscience in this way, maybe the folks will do a 180, I guess. But I would want to hear from them why and how, and then given your experience with these folks and how it's negatively and adversely impacting your people, how do you stay there? Now, I don't understand how you do the math of addition or multiplication for the next election without understanding some of that. I get it if you're like, it's just not my ministry. We've had that conversation before. No. But then I also don't understand the difference, pardon my ignorance, but how it's then okay to get, I don't want to call him a random person, but maybe someone who's less known, who we don't have experience with, who's been adversely impacted by this administration by a federal worker, but we platform them. So one took an action that leads to whatever the consequences are, but it's still information. Another one is just on the receiving end of whatever actions the American people took, but now they're suffering the consequences. It's still a story, no less. I just understand how I want to understand how we collectively here on this podcast thread that needle to get to the heart of the why, whether they voted for it or they're just impacted by those who voted for it.
I hear you. I just think there have been so many books written about this, so many articles that come out all the time. I don't like that. Question has been asked and answered 1,000 times. There have been like leading Black folks, who've written about this. But he didn't win the
popular vote last time. I'm talking about this time.
But even this time, I think, Mychael Harriet, a friend of ours, has written about this. I don't know why we would choose this platform to extend to people who I think are mostly provocateurs, who would salivate at the chance to come on the show and have some sort of exchange with you. I would not be part of it. They'd have an exchange with you where you have this huge platform and they have none. And so now the only thing you've done is made them a superstar. There are people out there who I'm not even going to give them the privilege of name checking them on this show, but there are Black, self-hating Black women out there. One we saw at the DNC. Anyway, y'all can go back and listen to that episode if you want to know who.
I'm not gonna name them, but I'm gonna give you all the hints.
Well, we don't need Andrew checking us for naming somebody.
He's checking you right now. In case you're confused, Andrew is checking you right now with his eyes. In case you're confused.
I'm not. I'm very appreciative of your approach.
Anywho,
good job,
there
Andrew.
are Black women, self-hating Black women out there, self-hating Black men out there who are only superstars because people platform them. Because we talked about them. We shared their clips. Not we as individuals, but we in our community, we shared their clips. We extended our outrage. We went back and forth with them on Twitter. We made comments on Instagram. Then there were Black people who said, come on my show. There are Black events that said, come sit on my platform. Come sit on this stage. All they did was elevate a fool. They made superstars out of ignorant people. I don't want us to do that here. I think if there's some intellectual curiosity about that, there are other ways to do it. If there's an individual curiosity about that, there are ways to satisfy it. I think putting them across from you, I don't like it.
I grew up in the school of Roland Martin.
I treat it
different on TV.
Sorry.
No, Andrew, I'll be done real quick. I grew up in the school of Roland Martin on TV.
I want to hear what this means.
I'm about to tell you. So on Washington Watch, before Roe had, was it News One Now?
News One.
News One Now. Before News One Now, he had Washington Watch. And every Friday I would be on with Armstrong Williams or Paris Lenard or Mychael or whomever. I forgot this other dude's name that really drove me nuts.
These are all Black Republicans, by the way.
All Black Republicans. And so, and it was, and Elroy Saylor, it was at a time where they were far more palatable and reasonable, but some of them have gone with the wind with Trump.
Yes.
Right? And I think, or are gone with the wind with Trump. Where is Paris? Where is Paris?
Ain't nobody seen Paris since he got into it with Phil Rudd.
Ain't nobody checking for Paris.
Ain't nobody looking for him either. But he got into it with Phil Rudd on CNN. He made an accusation against him, and who was, a national intelligence person. And then we never heard from Paris again.
Well, I hope they didn't off him. But the only point on Paris,
yeah, Cheesecake Factory.
Wink if you alive, Paris. Andrew gonna kill me because I'm so down 15 different tangents. My point is just this: I appreciated those conversations because even if I didn't agree with them, I heard another perspective. I was irritated I did Breakfast Club when Byron Donalds came on, and I was very irritated by the lies and the fact that he whipped out this paper allegedly from Larry Summers, and I couldn't see the paper. And I'm like, I'm on a Zoom. I can't even see what you just pulled out to refute. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I still think that those conversations are important because what ends up happening, Tiff, is they go into echo chambers. People would argue that maybe ours is an echo chamber in part because we don't have diverse voices on or contradicting voices on, but they go into those spaces unchallenged and they're lying the entire time. Nobody fact checking them. Anyway, Andrew, I can keep going.
All those spaces need to stop having them then. Well, Byron Donalds shouldn't have had that platform.
They literally have their own platforms.
And why was his ass in Selma? He ain't had no business being in Selma.
And saying in Selma that he doesn't support pre-clearance coming back into the Voting Rights Act.
God.
Okay,
but he
Andrew, Faith in Politics Institute because, of course, they're bipartisan. Anyway, go ahead,
Andrew.
I don't mind the conversation with Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds about his history, what he believes, how he shaped his belief system, so on and so forth. And by the way, nobody should be coming after us for what they think are not a diverse enough array of voices because we need to get our house in order first. There are a lot of us who largely vote the same way who can't give a real justification for the positioning around it. And then those who, by the way, choose not to vote, who can't give a real cogent and coherent reason why it is that they made the choice not to, other than laziness. Or I don't believe in a system, and yet you've not interrogated that system. So I do treat differently, Angela, your comment around the person who has experienced the effects of the administration. Yeah. I don't think that I would be curious about that. Mm-hmm. I would even be curious about the person who made the choice to vote for them, except just know if we're being treated equally on this platform and we both got time, I'm not going to be generous with mine. I'm going to ask you questions that I think as a voter, I would want to know before I went into a ballot box and chose an individual who showed you exactly who they were, not just demonstrated as a candidate, but as a former president of the United States for 4 years.
Yeah.
So just know if we went down that road, we're going to go all the way down that road.
Exactly.
I just am not interested in the sensational because you did a TikTok that was, fancy and went around. And even though the shit is ignorant as hell, that now you're on everybody's platform. That to me would not be an interesting exchange because I wouldn't know how to truly engage authentically with that kind of chicanery.
Mm-hmm. The one thing
my thought.
One thing I want to ask is Lola told us we were going to be doing these once a month live town halls. I just made a face at her.
Okay, yeah.
We haven't done them yet. And I think that maybe even having some type of convening like that where we're democratizing access to the platform without regard to how people are registered to vote, without regard to how they voted. I think that those are the kinds of things that we're missing. Tiff every week is on our heads about not getting all the voter questions.
Viewer questions, yeah.
Viewer questions is what I was trying to say. And I think that she's right. We do want to hear from you all. We want to continue to hear from you all. So it'd be great to know if you all would want to be in a town hall like that. Like, what led you to the ballot box or not? You know, who drove you to the ballot box or not?
What do you care about?
What do you care about?
Yeah.
And how can
what do you care enough about to do something?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how can we collectively work together on those things? I would love to have those conversations once a month on this podcast. I think when I consider what it means to be in the ethos of Native Land Pod and what it means when we say welcome home, it is just that. So I hope that we, even since the members of Congress, the Republicans won't have a town hall. You are welcome here. We will have a town hall.
They having town halls. They getting dragged to these town halls.
No, you saw the one where he was like, only Republicans come in and they check in their voter registration.
But it's Republican voters who are mad too, which is so ridiculous. But I want to say this about dissenting voices, because I don't want people to misunderstand me that I'm saying, no, we should not have dissenting voices. I think dissenting voices can be healthy. And like I said, I appreciate a healthy exchange of ideas. I appreciate a healthy exchange of ideology. The only person in the Trump administration who I would be really curious and interested to talk to is Kevin Hassett, who is his economic advisor. I think he is, number one, a great communicator, whether I agree with him or not. But I think, and he's at least sensible, and he is laser focused on economic policy. I believe economic policy that crushes us and harms us. But I think he could at least come on and have an intellectual exchange.
Is that your invitation?
If he would come on, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I would definitely sit across from him, because I think that is where you get to hear ideas and not a shouting match. We're not trying to go viral. If it happens to go viral, that's fine. I'm not elevating a clown. You know, like this is somebody who actually has deep conviction in his thoughts around economic policy. And I don't think he's had the opportunity to hear from a lot of people like us. Mm-hmm. So I would welcome that conversation. These random internet comments, jackasses who, you know, try to tag us and try to get our attention because they want to come on and want our attention. I tried to find this clip, Angela talking about y'all. I couldn't find it. But this clip of people.
It's a sign that God told me no, I guess.
But people like that. Like, it's another chick who, I think she was her husband owns a strip club or something, you know, whatever. Yeah. I don't even want to say her name, but this chick used to try to tweet me all the time and get my attention. Like, people like that. I'm like, no, why would I sit across? What have you done to earn a platform here? I'm not talking about the
personalities. I'm talking about the folks who voted or mobilized voters in their communities. Yeah. Like, what got you to that point?
No, but that's not a voice of dissent. I'm talking specifically about voices of dissent. You all want to hear, ideological differences. I'm completely open to that. I just am not interested in talking to people who are willfully ignorant, because it's not going to be a fair fight. If you come on here and you can't defend your ideas and you can't stand, we can show clips, I suppose, but if you can't handle the intellectual weight of the table, then you really don't have any business here. And I do respectfully think Kevin Hassett could, even though his policies I think are harmful, he could. So that kind of thing I like. But
so
we want to hear
from... So long as we live in a fact...
Right. We got to at least agree on some basic facts. But I want to hear from the viewers and the listeners. If you guys want to see that type of exchange, just tell us what kind of guests you'd like to hear from. Do y'all want to see some of these, Trump people, Republican members on the show? Who are some people we may be overlooking who you'd like to hear from? Because I would be curious to hear from you guys. And as a reminder, before we wrap this up, you all have an open invitation to have your voices heard on this show. So please continue to send in videos. Please keep them less than 60 seconds. But please continue to send in your videos. If they're questions, if they're comments, if you agree or disagree with one of us, we welcome you home here. Here you do have a voice. And we appreciate you all for tuning in, and tell a friend to tune in. Thank you guys for tuning in this time. This is an ongoing conversation that we'll certainly be revisiting. Remember that these mini pods drop every Friday. You can catch our main pod that drops every Thursday. You can catch solo pods that drop every Monday and Tuesday. So we are giving you as much content as we can, and stay tuned for the guests that we will have on the show in the very near future. And we look forward to hearing from you. We will see you back here next week.
Yep. Welcome home, y'all.
Welcome home.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeart Radio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeart Radio, visit the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.